I describe myself as a public loony, and I've been a public loony since the late 1980s. I use the term public loony because it's about saying, I have a mental illness, I call myself mad, I call myself a loony, and I'm not ashamed of who I am or of what I've experienced. I have schizophrenia and I'm not a monster. I managed to get through uni, which was a miracle, but during those 3 or 4 years of getting my degree, I was quietly unravelling without knowing it. They began as a whisper in the early parts of that year, and over the course of the 12 months of 1976, my voices got louder and louder and louder, and by the end of that year, they were railing at me. And I didn't know that they were part of an illness. I thought they were just part of me. Back then, a diagnosis of schizophrenia was tantamount to a death sentence. And I remember even being told by some clinicians at the time that with each episode of psychosis I had, I would go deeper into madness from which I'd never recover. If you haven't heard a voice in your head that no one else can hear, you can't imagine what it's like to have this noise rattling on in your head, voices telling you to do things, to believe things, to say things that you wouldn't normally think, believe or say. And then there are delusions, fixed firm beliefs not based in reality. People have no idea of the mental distress that we live with. It's a totally and utterly overwhelming illness. I started documenting my madness in poetry. And so I'd write a poem, I'd put it in a drawer and not show anybody the poem. But when I held that poem in my hand, on that bit of paper, on that written bit of paper, that poem was testament to my existence. It was evidence that I was still alive. I just think poetry is a way of saying the unsayable, speaking the unspeakable, and acknowledging the unacknowledgeable. And I kept writing poems and kept writing poems. And then in 1993, my friend Susan Hawthorne, who had started Spinifex Press, said, I want to publish your poems in a book. And my first book of poems was born, Poems from the Madhouse. And overnight, my life changed from just being a psych patient and having no identity to being Sandy Jeff's poet. I kept writing poems, I had more books published, and now I've had 7 books of poetry published and a memoir, and my life looks so different to how it did back in 1976. My family saw me as a failure. My parents died before my books were published, so they died thinking I was a failure. And that's really sad. I didn't want to be a failure, but that's how I saw myself. For all the research that's been done in the last, say, 30 years with brain imaging and looking at the structure of the brain, not much has changed in terms of the treatment of schizophrenia. And I find that interesting. You would hope that with all the research that's been done, that there would be better medications and more efficacious medications, and there aren't. In a way that the holy grail of psychiatry is to find the cause of schizophrenia and then a cure. And they haven't even come close to that yet. Researching schizophrenia is the key. We need to unlock cures, we need to understand more. Let's turn 1 in 5 into none in 5.